Hello, everybody. This is Alan Davidson. I'm your host this evening, and welcome to Enlightened Tapping, how to uplift and transform your life with a radical glimpse of your magnificent soul. And I know that is a bold statement, but I'm here to deliver on that bold statement. And I have a couple of friends on the line that are going to join me a little later to help us in demonstrating this bold promise. So I am Alan Davidson. I'm the founder of ThroughYourBody.com, and we are dedicated to our healthy, happy, and prosperous world through the full enlightenment of every human being. And what excites me in my world and in my work is that I help you to embody your own spiritual enlightenment so that together we can midwife a magnificent new world, an extraordinary world where all of us together can celebrate our health, our happiness, and our prosperity. And that's really what gives me the biggest kick in my life. So I'm thrilled that you're here, you've joined me, and that we're having this time together. This webinar is for you if you have a dedicated spiritual practice, whether it's yoga, martial arts, meditation, you've been studying any of the mystical traditions around the world, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Sufism, the mystical tradition, Christian tradition, the Kabbalah, any of the shamanic traditions, the kahunas in Hawaii. All of the great mystical traditions have been saying the same thing for 5,000 years. And even in the last 120 years, moving to psychology with the work of Freud and Jung especially, depth psychology, transpersonal psychology. We often forget that the psyche in psychology actually means soul, and that the intention of Western psychology is to reunite the body and the heart and the mind to the soul so that we can live a fully integrated, happy life. But sometimes in our dedication to our health and our well-being and our spiritual practices, we hit a plateau and we feel like we are not getting the results. We're not getting the bang for the buck for sitting on a cushion or going to retreats or going to programs. We're not getting the depth and transformation that we want. And also, even though we've dedicated our lives to spiritual principles for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, however long you've been practicing, there can still be people in your life that trigger a knee-jerk reaction, and they hijack your greatest intentions. And you just don't understand where that comes from. We go into defense. We go to war with each other, and our spiritual practice goes right out the window. Or oftentimes there's painful memories that haunt us, or that there are toxic emotions that, once again get triggered and they come up, and it's like, wow, I've been meditating for years. Where did that anger come from? Or where did that sense of deep, deep grief come from? And it doesn't seem to be necessarily connected to a circumstance that's going on in our lives, or certainly the reaction we have. We can't point to a particular person or situation. And this is one that I see causing so much grief in people's life, is the thoughts that we have, the stressful thoughts, the beliefs that we have about ourselves and our lives and our world. It's these stories that we tell that are stuck in our mind, and they continue to self-sabotage us. So the work that I'm talking about this evening and the practices that I'm going to introduce you tonight will help you. But also, this webinar is right for you if you really, really deeply desire, positive, crisp, and crystal clear emotions. And one of the examples I want to share with you is a story about His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And he's a great role model for me, not only because of his teaching of Buddhism and the clarity and the simplicity that he brings to very complex. If you've studied much about Tibetan Buddhism, it's a very complex system. And he has such a way of articulating it so clearly and so succinctly. But it's really how he lives as a political leader and a spiritual leader traveling the world. And there's a story about him at his headquarters in Dharamsala, India, and had been leading a 3-day retreat called the Bodhisattva of Compassion. And he was sitting there, and it had been a beautiful, crystal clear, cold day. He was very joyful, laughing, and the people in the audience were very playful, and it was just a lot of joy in the room. And suddenly, a monk entered from the back of the room and scurried up to the front where His Holiness was sitting, and he whispered into His Holiness's ear. And the audience watched in disbelief as His Holiness started to cry and sob uncontrollably. And just for a few minutes, literally cried. And then he looked up to the audience and took a breath. And he said, last night the Chinese tortured and executed 100 nuns and 200 monks in Tibet. And with another breath, he said, please let us pray for the Chinese. And the importance of this story is how, when His Holiness heard that tragic news, he allowed the emotion to come up crystal clear and express it fully in the moment. And then once it had passed, he was able to find that deep, deep center of compassion with himself and then make the right choice. Let us pray for the Chinese. And so that's why having access to positive, crisp, and crystal clear emotions. And so when we can feel anger completely and thoroughly, or grief, or whatever the emotion is, it gives us so much more room for joy and happiness and delight and pleasure in our lives. Also, this webinar is for you if you are looking for that way of being in the world where you feel completely engaged and turned on and in flow with the movement and energy. All the green lights on the street are in your favor, and just people are responding to you from this lovely place. You really want deep, committed, loving relationships based on respect and exquisite vulnerability. You really commit to living your true purpose in the world and creating a life of meaning, and that you're committed to mastery and achievement and really expressing your gifts fully, your talents and your passions in the world. So the work that I'm pointing to helps us do a couple of things. It really has helped me heal and clear a lot of emotional and painful baggage, as well as really build the skills of living a fabulous switched on, turned on life. So let's jump into it. I'm Alan Davidson. I'm the author of Body Brilliance, and it is the #1 health and wellness book when it came out, and also the winner of 2 Book of the Year awards. And I just share this to let you know a little bit about my journey, so you think to yourself, why should I listen to this guy? I do have a degree in psychology with an emphasis on sociology, philosophy, and religion. Actually, it's 25 years now as a massage therapist. For 16 years, I've led a weekly meditation group here in the Houston area. And I've studied with some of the great psychologists and world-class spiritual teachers in the world. But life wasn't always so fabulous for me. I moved to Houston in 1980, and I went to work in the nightclub industry, and I eventually became the bartender to the fabulous, is how I like to describe it. At least we thought we were fabulous. We had a lot of fun, a tremendous amount of fun. I like to say that we had more fun in a 3-day weekend than the entire state of Oklahoma has in a year. But that kind of fun also comes with a very high price. And for me, that price was HIV/AIDS. I was a drug user for, a solid 6 years. And more importantly, in those years, I shared needles with men who did eventually die from AIDS. So when we realized that AIDS came from a virus, I just assumed that I would die, because I had shared needles with men who had already died and were sick and dying, painful, excruciating deaths. And eventually I did get sober. And once the fog kind of cleared for me, I had to decide, am I going to make short-term plans for my life and wait to get sick, or am I going to make long-term plans? And I happened to live with a medical doctor at the time, and he was an expert in HIV/AIDS, and he kept saying to me, Alan, I think you might be negative. You're just too healthy. And he kept saying that to me over and over and over. Alan, I think you might be negative. You're just too healthy. So after about 6 months of hearing that, I finally summoned the courage to go get tested. And, you know, it really is a miracle, because the goddess, God, nature, divine spirit, however you want to describe the intelligence that moves the universe that we live in, she placed her hand on my shoulder and spared me. I had played Russian roulette with my life, and somehow, some way, I beat the odds. And I left the Montrose Clinic, that's the neighborhood I live in here in Houston, that day, vowing to quit squandering the talents that I had been given and to use the gifts that I had been given to make a difference. First in my own life, and somehow in the life of the community I live in. And 6 months later, I found myself in massage school. And it was a long, long, slow process. And the story is relevant because we have so many ways to numb ourselves, so many ways. But people who choose to put a needle in their arm have such intense shame or fear or repressed emotions that's the only way that they can anesthetize them. So when I talk about recovering and healing emotions, I want you to understand that I do know a little bit about what I'm talking about here. So first, I want to tell you what I have discovered in my work. Now, not only have I been a body worker for 25 years, have my degree in psychology, I am currently now working on my master's degree in Jungian psychology, the work of Carl Jung. But what I found in teaching massage school for 10 years and work with thousands and thousands of clients at this point, and teaching meditation classes, around the world, what I have found is that we have these 5 vital intelligences: the physical, emotional, mental, moral, and spiritual intelligences. And they are layers of consciousness in our body, from the densest, which is the bones and the muscles and the connective tissues, to then the more subtle, we get to the heart and the breath and the guts. And that's where our emotional intelligence rests. And then we get to the mind, the nervous system, and the brain itself, and our thinking. And the brain and the nervous system is actually the conduit for mind. And then that 4th, more subtle layer, even than the nervous system, is what we call consciousness or awareness or discernment, our ability to choose and understand the consequences. And that is the pillar of moral intelligence, what we commit to, what we're in service to in our lives. And then that 5th layer is even more subtle, and that is the layer of the chakras, the spiritual energy, the chi, the prana, the auric field, that then is the connection to the greater intelligence, the superconscious mind in the world. So those are the 5 layers of consciousness, and any real healing path must address all of them: physical, emotional, mental, moral, and spiritual. And I think that's why we see so many treatments in the world that are incomplete. You can go and get a chiropractic adjustment, but if you haven't addressed the energetic blockages in the body, it's going to recreate itself. If you go to the doctor and you get treatment for a series of sinus troubles that you have, but you haven't dealt with the conflicting emotions underlying your allergic reaction, then you're never going to get past needing medication just to deal with the environment you live in. So it's a holistic perspective. So I want to shift here and talk about some layers of your auric field. And people have different opinions and they name the layers different things. But within the 7 chakras, also there are the layers of energy that surround your body. And it's important to realize that not only is what's happening in your brain, but it's also happening in a subtle layer of energy around your body in the mental field. Not only are emotions happening, sensations and reactions to circumstance happening in your physical body, but it's also happening in one of these subtle layers. It's actually the blue layer around in this figure. But also what's important is that we understand that there is a karmic layer. It's also called the causal layer of consciousness. And so you have to work at all these subtle layers of energy as well. So meditation and spiritual practice does a couple of things. You know, one, we train our body to sit in stillness and just to be still and present. But then also we have to clear that subtle layer in the auric field that's holding a lot of residue from the stories that we tell and the stressful thoughts that we believe. So not only are you stilling your mind and balancing right and left hemispheres and inviting those hemispheres to go from alpha, beta, theta into delta, and then hopefully the eureka moment when all of they go into gamma, which are those incredible spiritual flashes of insight. But you're also clearing things from the emotional level in your auric field as well as the mental. And then the karmic layer really holds a lot of trauma from past lives. If you believe in reincarnation, you're born with certain qualities in the karmic field. And so it's more challenging to work and to heal. You know, with serious practice, you can really still and calm and remove the stress in the mental and the auric fields around your body. But the karma is much more challenging to do. Our friend John Wyrick says that you need about 20 years, a good teacher, and a lot of luck to be healing at the karmic level. But now we know we're at a certain point in time in history where the power of intention and specific techniques allows us to go in and make very rapid progress in stilling the mind, calming the heart, clearing the auric field, and actually healing karmic trauma that we brought from past lives. So here is just a representation of what I call the five intelligences, and this is the emblem of my work, the physical, emotional, mental, moral, and spiritual intelligences. And I will give each and every one of you the PowerPoint slides here to go with the recordings of this, so you'll have access to look at all these slides. So I mentioned the Dalai Lama, and so in the email that invited you to come to this webinar, I mentioned the two splinters in your mind that keep you from true peace and joy in your life. And actually, that's a bit of a simplification because the Dalai Lama says that there are actually 108 different emotional and mental states that keep us from this pure state of peace and being and stillness and joy. And now, interestingly, in Tibetan, they don't distinguish between emotional and mental, heart and mind. They have one word that really addresses it. But when we interpret it from a Western perspective, about 80 of those mental states that keep us out of pure bliss are actually emotional trauma that we're carrying around with us. And then about 40 more are, pure mental, stressful thoughts, beliefs, limiting beliefs, that sort of thing. But it's interesting that it's a 2/3 ratio, that 80 of those 108 are based on painful emotions, toxic emotions that are trapped in our lives. So I want to show you some ways tonight how we can begin to deal with that. Now, what I found in my research and my work is that each of the 5 lower chakras, the root chakras that deal with physical reality and manifestation, the first one being there at the tip of the coccyx bone, the color is red. Then the second chakra, which is the reproductive organs, the Chinese call it the dantian, the Japanese call it the hara. The solar plexus is right there at the underneath the rib cage. the green chakra, the heart chakra there, the blue chakra at the throat. Those are the 5 lower chakras, and they deal with the 5 elements of time and space and manifestation and being in a body and having a body. The final 2 chakras, the third eye and the crown chakra, the third eye being just above the eyebrow and the crown chakra being on the top of the head, those are the more spiritual elements. And so they don't deal specifically with being in a body in 3-dimensional time and space. So they do not carry the traces of the toxic emotions. Although when we're stuck in those lower chakras, it keeps us from experiencing fully the upper 2 chakras there. So in my research and in my work, I've been an energy medicine practitioner for 24 plus years. I became a certified polarity therapist. It was really the first thing that I did when I graduated from massage school. I was so drawn to the subtle energy. So in my work, I found that the root chakra is the seat of fear. The second chakra is where lust, cravings, grasping, trying to hold on to pleasures and people and circumstances in our lives. The solar plexus is anger. The heart chakra is disgust or revulsion, shame, humiliation. All those experiences are stored in the heart center. And then in the throat is grief. And an interesting thing about grief, there's multiple layers of grief happening. There's all the griefs that we've had and experienced just by being human and living in this world, whether it's losing, innocence or security or a childhood home or even achieving a goal, relationships that end, sometimes very painfully, people die. So there's that grief. But also as the soul incarnates into this world, it moves from this place of being very free and spontaneous and open and very liberating, connected to the currents of stillness and peace and compassion that really infuse the world. And then we come into 3-dimensional time and space. We come through our mother's womb. So many of us were smacked on the butt when we came out so we'd start breathing. So there's actually a longing for what we lost as spiritual beings. So there's several layers of grief that's happening there in the throat chakra. So let's see. So we're going to circle back to those emotions in a moment. Actually, I want to come back because I promised to talk about the 2 qualities of fear that everybody must transform in their life before they can really move into spiritual mastery, your own personal authority, your own spiritual authority, whatever that is for you. And the 2 qualities of fear, they really come out of the work of Freud and Carl Jung in understanding at least the Western mind. And there are 2 basic fears that everybody has. It's the fear of being abandoned, and it's the fear of being overwhelmed or even annihilated. And I want you to think about, for those of you that have kids or have been around babies, if you've noticed that point in when a kid is learning to crawl or they're learning to walk and they're exploring their independence and their freedom, and then they get to a certain point and they realize, oh, I've lost my mommy, I've lost my daddy, and they turn around and they look, and then they scamper back to the safety and security of their mother. And psychologists call that the rapprochement crisis. It is that tension that all of us have in our psyches between the need to be independent and the need to be connected. But because most of us were wounded by the culture that we live in and the families, no matter how perfect your parents were, we still swim in a cultural ocean that is often built on defense. Psychological defense, emotional defense. And so because of those woundings, we have a preference of one of those great fears or the other. I'm going to be abandoned. I'm going to be left alone. I'm going to be in isolation. So I develop all these defenses around how do I then, keep people close to me. The great extreme is codependence. And then the flip side of the coin is I'm afraid I'm small and the world is really big. I'm going to be overwhelmed. I'm going to be stressed out. I might even be annihilated. And so people that have that as a primary defense develop a certain other group of pathologies and fears. So you have to come to terms at the level of your root chakra with these two basic fears of what does it mean to be in your own spiritual authority, in your own personal authority, and be present to that knowledge and that sensation and that experience that people go, people come, circumstances change. And there's that inherent fear that I'm going to be abandoned, I'm going to be left behind, or I'm going to be overwhelmed by the world. And I think that's why the crucifixion of Christ is such a powerful image in our culture and our worlds, because being crucified as Jesus was, he was abandoned by God. When he says, God, why have you forsaken me? And then, of course, his life is being annihilated on the cross. So that's the ultimate in both of those fears expressing themselves in reality. And I think that's why a lot of spiritual people have this concern about being crucified for standing up and finding their own message and their own truth. So, so those are the two fears that you must deal with before you can really, truly move forward. And I also want to say that coming from the Course in Miracles, the Course says that there's only two realities. There's fear and there's love. And actually, fear is a hallucination. It's not even real, but it's a perceived reality. And so as I look at these five lower chakras, fear, cravings, anger, shame, and grief, there is an element of fear in all of them. If you look at the second chakra, the cravings, grasping, lusting after something, I'm afraid I'm not going to get what I want. Anger is that fear of, somebody has trespassed against me. I've got to set a boundary. I've got to define something. I've got to bring this energy up from my solar plexus in my body. And I'm afraid that somebody is going to take advantage of me, overwhelm me, annihilate me. Now, in the heart, shame is really the story, the belief that I am not worthy of connection or belonging, that I deserve to be abandoned, that I deserve to be isolated. And so, again, that's based on fear. And then grief at the throat chakra is very much about the fear that I've lost something that I will never be able to experience again, whether it's a level of comfort, intimacy, of connection. So again, there's a kernel of fear underneath that saying, I'm never going to have this experience again. And so we psychologically and emotionally go into a place of grief. So when we work at that root chakra with all the different fears, then it's very, very powerful. I also want to just talk a moment about shame. That's where a lot of my own work in my personal life is right now. I'm reading a book, really immersing myself in a book by Brené Brown, which is fantastic, called Daring Greatly. And she is a shame and vulnerability researcher here in Houston, actually at the University of Houston. But her TED Talk at TED.com has been viewed over 6 million times. It's one of the most popular TED Talks in the history of the website. And in her work, she defines 12 different major categories of shame. And I've been just systematically going through each one of those and working with those aspects of my own self and my own memories and history, and really doing a lot of deep healing. And it's one of the most transformative things that I've done in a very long time. So, getting in and systematically using that cosmic rooter and working with these toxic emotions will give you such a huge bang for your buck. there was a great Buddhist teacher here in the United States. He was Tibetan, Trungpa, Chongyom Trungpa. He was the founder of Naropa Institute in Boulder, which was the very first certified 4-year Buddhist college in America. But part of his teachings was the thoughts are the foot soldiers of the ego, but the emotions are the generals of the ego. So, and particularly if those emotions are toxic, then, it's really entrenching the lower self, the ego self, in its foothold. And so it's very, very hard to transcend unless you actually do deep work on these emotions. So here is the pyramid of enlightenment, the 3 steps of awareness. And if you look at the lower left-hand corner, that's the self. That's another word for saying ego or personality or your character, however you want to define it, but it is that perspective of it's me, it's I. And then I want you to imagine the Grand Canyon and being on one side of the Grand Canyon, and then way over on the other side, across this vast expanse, is what the mystical teachers have been saying for 5,000 years. There's the non-self. And from the ego perspective, it's very, very difficult to imagine how am I going to get across the Grand Canyon and experience this stillness. In Zen meditation, they often say you have to sit on a bench many, many hours and many months and years before you have a real satori or an enlightening experience, because you have to make that bold leap across that canyon to that place of, oh, there is no ego. There is no I. I am now one with the universe. And then moving, and for many, many years, a lot of the enlightened teachings have really come from that place of the non-self. So it's that dualistic, the self, the non-self. But what we're now moving into is a paradigm of being where we actually realize, oh, you can't annihilate the ego. You need it to make plane reservations or drive to the dry cleaners. So we're now, how do we then transcend and include and integrate a mature and healthy ego with the aspect of our consciousness that is what we call the non-self or the true self? And it's an amazing process, and that is really the journey of enlightenment. First to go from me, I think I'm going to change my name to me. I am the center of the universe, to all of a sudden, there is no I, there is no me. I simply am the vastness and the stillness at the center of the universe. And then realizing that, wait, there's more. And it's just as possible to get stuck in the non-self as it is in the self. So that's where that fully enlightened, fully embodied presence is so valuable, and that's where we're really integrating the true self. And I'm not talking a lot, but I'm going to give you an experience of all this in just a few minutes. So first I want to tell you about this lady. This is Margaret M. Lynch, and she's my friend and teacher. And the work that I'm going to share with you tonight really comes from Margaret. And, I say that. I was at an event of hers a year ago, and I have been studying various things for 30 years. And I was watching her in a room full of people. She's an EFT or tapping expert, emotional freedom technique, among other things. And, I was just in awe of the way she was holding a room of 160 people and doing some really deep shadow work and holding the space for everybody to have an experience that was healing and transformative, yet respectful of who they were and where they were in their lives. And all of a sudden, I got a download of how I could take all the important pieces of everything I'd ever studied, my favorite things to work with, and integrate it into a system. And that would allow people to, myself included, really get in and just excavate these old ways of being and thinking. So I have a great debt to Margaret for, holding the space for that. And the great honor for me is a year later, I was able to present at her program, I did a morning meditation where I actually rolled out this work to the people in the program, and 45 folks showed up at 7 a.m. to do this meditation, and I'm pleased to say it went very well. So here are the two simple techniques for fully enlightened, fully embodied presence. And I'm about to bring our friends online here in just a moment. But let me just tell you that it really combines the very best of Western psychology and Eastern mysticism. That, you know, from the lineage of Carl Jung with active imagination, with Fritz Perls and the empty chair technique, to Hal and Sidra Stone. Hal was a Jungian analyst, and he and his wife Sidra developed a technique that they call voice dialogue, which is the idea that we have multiple sub-personalities within us, and that with just intention and shifting of the body, you can actually speak very fully to these sub-personalities, and they have a perspective and an opinion and their own code of ethics and a job that they do for the self. Very fascinating. And then my other teacher, Genpo Roshi, a Zen master, had studied with Hal and Sidra Stone, and eventually realized that not only do we have all these 10,000 voices of the ego, but the 10,000 enlightened voices are already in our conscious. We just need to ask to speak to them. And with a little fine-tuning and dialing in, we have access to them. So that's that. And then I added the EFT tapping to it, which really helps to anchor these exalted states into the energy grid of the body, into the bones and the muscles, into the guts. Every aspect of our physical being then is holding that state of enlightened consciousness. And a piece we're not going to go into so much tonight is the regressive piece around the toxic emotions, how you tap into the voice of anger and feel it in your body, and then through a relationship with a trusted source, the superconscious mind, your spirit guides, however you want to imagine it, you regress back to the earliest memory that's safe and appropriate at the time to remember, and tap through it and clear it. And actually, it frees up so much energy in your body and your life. So let's see. So I'm going to introduce our friends. So Brad, if you want to unmute yourself. And I want to say hello to Kathy and Deborah and to Brad. Hello, guys. How are you?
Hey, guys. Hi, Alan.
Thank you so much for being on the webinar today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, and I'm really excited.
Good. Good. Well, I want to say that the three guests that I have, they're going to be your voice for those of you listening either at home or to the recording. And so I invite you, if you're someplace, close the door, get very quiet, and I am going to invite you to speak out loud, even though we can't hear you on the call right now. There will be a time for question and answers later in our call. But I want to do a little demonstration. Now, I'll say that Brad and Kathy and Deborah have all done this work with me, so they're sort of a little used to it, but I'm going to set it up for all of us here. So imagine that you're a transistor radio and that you have all these stations or channels, which are unique aspects of yourself that are broadcasting at different frequencies, and they have different kinds of music or talk radio or news or rock and roll and soul and country and western and Latin, multiple aspects of your own consciousness. And what we're going to do by our intention and shifting our body is to speak to and give access to a unique piece of yourself, a subpersonality, as you will. The first one we're going to speak to is the controller. To give you an example. So I invite you, as I'm facilitating and asking questions, and Kathy and Deborah and Brad are responding to me, I invite you at home, even though we can't hear you, to speak out loud. what I find is the people who give voice to this experience, and the voice resonates through the connective tissues of your body. So it sort of helps anchor that perspective into your own consciousness. And I also say listen deeply, because there's a difference in your mind telling you something and you sort of dropping into your body and a deeper awareness of yourself and listening to the truth that arises from your own awareness. So I invite you to listen deeply to what these voices might have to share for you and with you. And another way that we play with this is also to speak from the I place. So I might be coaching someone, when we ask to speak to the controller, it's like all of a sudden, okay, Alan gets moved over there to the side of the room, and now I am the controller. I'm in charge. I'm the boss. I like to control everything. So it's sort of, letting the truth of that which really comes front and center. And then after a few minutes of working with some of the voices of the ego, we're going to tap. And then I'm going to ask to make that leap across the Grand Canyon to some of the voices of the non-self. And for some people, it's the first time they've really had an extraordinary experience of enlightenment or samadhi or satori, nirvana, where you really do feel the boundaries slipping away and just being really present to the vastness of the universe and even transcending the universe. So I invite you to hang in there with us, and we'll go from there. Any questions, Brad or Kathy or Deborah, before we start?
Nope, I'm good.
Nope. I'm good too.
Okay, anything I left out that might be helpful for people at home?
Trust the process.
Brad, that is so good. Yes, trust the process. And of course, Brad can say that because he's got a really healthy skeptic to him, I can honestly say, which is one of my favorite voices. But yeah, trust the process. And even though it sounds really weird or it sounds really different, just give it a try and just see what kind of experience you have. And I also want to point out on the screen here, you'll notice that the Buddha has different little yellow dots, and those are the tapping points that we're going to use tonight as we move into it, okay? So, you ready, kids?
Yep.
Ready.
Yep.
Okay. Please allow me to speak to the controller, please. So shift in your chair and allow the controller to come forward. Who am I speaking to?
You're speaking to the controller.
The controller.
The controller.
Okay, great. And what's your job?
To control.
All right.
Yeah, to control everything.
What was that, Kathy?
I said to control everything.
Control everything. Deborah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, control everything and do not rest.
Yeah, control everything and do not rest. Excellent, excellent. So what are some of the things that you control for the self?
Life.
Life, okay. His life.
Emotion.
I'm saying making sure she's safe.
Okay, so controlling, making sure that she's safe. Okay, great, great.
And mine was don't show emotions, control your emotions.
So okay, say that from an I place. As a controller, I make sure that I control the emotions for the self.
Do you want me to repeat that?
Yeah, please.
As a controller, I make sure I control all the emotions for the self.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what are some of the emotions that you sort of judged as dangerous for the self?
I, the controller, am controlling the part of me that might stand out.
Right, might stand out, might be seen.
Yeah, might be seen.
Yeah, might be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Anyone else? What are you controlling for the self?
Yeah, mine came up, it's controlling anger.
I'm controlling anger.
I'm controlling anger.
Right, right. And what are some of the ways that you do that?
Oh, I stuff it down.
Uh-huh.
I try to turn it into something positive.
Right. Oh, so you put a spin on it for the self, turn it into something positive.
Yeah.
That's clever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good at what you do, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Well, so all of you, you've had a lot of experience controlling, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'm a
Yes,
master
absolutely.
controller.
Like 24/7.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever get a rest?
No, I was just thinking that this controller never rests. There's no room to rest. There's no time to rest.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I never get
Need
to rest. Well, that was no need to rest.
There's no need to rest because I'm in control.
That's exactly right. So even when the self is sleeping, you're still in control.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fascinating, fascinating. So I want to ask you a very important question. Now, you mentioned controlling some of the emotions, but wouldn't you say as a controller, one of your very important jobs is to control how the other voices that are inside the self, how they're accessed, and even how they express themselves?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I realize some days it might be harder than others, some of those unruly voices.
Some days they do get out of hand.
Very true.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But it would behoove me to ask your cooperation and your permission even to speak to some of these other voices, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would like your permission this evening as we move forward to speak to some of the other voices.
We
Okay.
have this controller's permission.
Okay, great. And I do, and I want to make a deal with you. If at any time you feel like the self is threatened or concerned, that you just, give me a shout out and let me know that I've crossed a line and you need to talk to me.
Okay.
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 Yeah.
All right. And also in the trade-off, you get to do something that you love so much. I'm going to ask that, we shift and speak to some of these other voices, excuse me, then I get a crystal clear channel to that voice. So that means you get to control all those other voices in the self and to sort of keep them kind of quiet and in the background while I have full access to a voice. Is that cool?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Minus thing that makes me happy.
That's right. You get to do what you love to do and, and help out in the process. So thank you.
My controller is not really appreciating this process right now.
So okay, now who's speaking?
It's Deborah.
Okay, so say more about what the controller's thinking.
I'm not sure, the controller's not sure if I'm willing to share these other emotions at the moment, and there's a bit of resistance with the controller.
Okay, okay. Well, first, okay, so can I speak to the controller specifically, please?
Yeah,
Okay, and who am I speaking to?
you're speaking to the controller.
Okay, great, thank you. And I appreciate you coming back and just letting me know your hesitancy. Well, first I want to say that, for tonight's demonstration, we're not going to be working with any heavy emotions or going into any really painful places. So that's not my intention for this process tonight. So I just wanted to share that with you. And also let you know that it's really just sort of to demonstrate for people listening how simple the process can be, but yet how powerful it can be.
Therefore, the controller, when it heard the word simple, then it is okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, I just want to take a moment to really acknowledge you as the controller for the work that you've done, the extraordinary work that you've done, just to get to the self, to the place they are in their life. And I'm wondering how often you hear thank you or gratitude or appreciation from the self for the tremendous job that you do?
Not often enough.
Not often enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is saying it's been more lately. Probably since I did this with you in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, great. Because where would we be without the controller?
Out of control.
Amok, 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 I like to say. Okay, great. All right. Well, it's a privilege and a pleasure to speak to you, the controller, and I appreciate the permission that you've given to speak to some of the other voices. And so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to actually make a bold leap, and I'm going to ask to cross that canyon, and I'm going to ask to speak to the superconscious mind. So let's shift in our chairs, and let's start tapping on the karate chop point. And I am the superconscious mind.
I am the superconscious mind.
Superconscious mind.
I am the intelligence that weaves itself through the entire universe.
I am the intelligence that weaves itself through the entire universe.
I transcend time and space.
I transcend time and space.
I am vast.
I am vast.
I am emptiness.
I am emptiness.
I am spaciousness.
I am spaciousness.
I am the non-self.
I am the non-self.
I transcend the ego.
I transcend the ego.
The ego.
I transcend all of reality.
I transcend all of reality.
And yet all of reality arises within me.
And yet all the reality that rises
within me.
So it's tapping through the points, starting with the inner eyebrow point. And I tend to move through them very quickly. You use your own pace, whatever you like. I am superconscious mind.
I am superconscious
mind.
I am the intelligence weaving itself through space.
I am the intelligence
weaving itself through space.
I am emptiness.
I am emptiness.
I am vast.
I am vast.
I am the field of pure being.
I am the field of pure being.
I am the field of pure potentiality.
I am the field of pure potentiality.
And yet entire universes arise within me.
Yet the entire universe arises
within me.
I am the superconscious mind.
I am the superconscious mind.
Universes.
Universes.
Galaxies.
Galaxies.
Solar systems.
Solar systems.
Planets.
Planets.
Bodies.
Bodies.
Beings.
Beings.
All arise within me.
All arise
within me.
And yet I am the emptiness of space.
Yet I am the emptiness of
space.
I am stillness.
I am stillness.
I am pure awareness.
I am pure awareness.
Pure awareness.
I am superconscious mind.
I am superconscious mind.
And take a breath. And I really invite you now, those of you, speaking to me live, and also everybody at home, just look deep into yourself. And what do you notice? What do you sense?
Vast emptiness.
Vast emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
An openness, a clearness.
Openness, clearness.
It feels very, very still.
Very still.
And there's a heat.
That heat.
There's
Beautiful,
heat.
beautiful.
Yeah. It feels really calm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to shift it. So we've really tapped into sort of the stillness and the awareness that is the fundamental quality of enlightenment. And this is the voice of meditation. Another way of saying that. And these are the qualities of meditation. But now I want to shift and come more to that feminine, that compassionate quality that weaves itself through the universe as well. And can I speak to the Great Mother of Pure Being, please? And shifting in your chairs. And who am I speaking to?
I'm the Great Mother of Pure Being.
And tapping on the karate chop point. And that's the point in the hand, folks at home, that, if you were to, hit something like a karate chop and in EFT tapping, that's where we sort of set it up into the body. So I am the Great Mother of Pure Being.
I am
The Great Mother of Pure Being.
I am the feminine impulse and intelligence in the universe.
I am the feminine impulse
and intelligence in the earth.
I am compassion.
I am compassionate.
I am kindness.
I am kindness.
I am the great love of the universe.
I am the great love of the
universe.
Oceans of love.
Oceans of love.
Oceans of love.
I can never be exhausted.
I can never be exhausted.
The universe itself is made of me.
The universe
itself is made of me.
And tapping through the points, I am the Great Mother of Pure Being.
I am the Great Mother of Pure Being.
I am the field of pure potentiality.
I am the
field of pure potentiality.
I am devotion.
I am devotion.
I am the Mother's love.
I am the Mother's love.
I am the Creator's love.
I am the Creator's
love.
It is my love and energy.
It is my love and energy.
That
spins entire universes.
That spins entire
universes.
And what a delight.
And what a delight.
I am full engagement.
I am
full engagement.
I embrace all of life.
I embrace
all of life.
All of creation.
All of creation.
In the rising and falling of life.
And the rising and falling
of life.
I am present, fully present.
I am present, fully present.
As galaxies rise and fall.
As galaxies rise and fall.
As planets rise and fall.
As planets rise and fall.
As bodies rise and fall.
As bodies rise and fall.
And yet I am here with my open heart.
And yet I am here with my open heart.
Embracing all aspects of life and creation.
Embracing all aspects of life
and creation.
And I can hold all the suffering in the world.
And I can hold
all the suffering in the world.
In my pure heart.
In my pure heart.
What joy.
What joy.
What beauty.
What beauty.
What beauty.
How pure is compassion.
How pure is
compassion.
Oceans of love.
Oceans of love.
Oceans of love.
And shake that off. Take a breath. And again, just looking deeply into yourself. What do you notice? What do you sense?
There's a much greater sense of peace and joy.
A greater sense of peace and joy. Beautiful.
Yeah, I've got a tingling kind of going in my heart and throat.
Tingling sensation in the heart and throat.
It's a greater sense of simply being.
A greater sense of simply being. And I'm just feeling such a tenderness for my life right now. Beautiful, beautiful. So I'm going to ask the Great Mother of Pure Being, can you sense where the self, the different voices and aspects of the self have been suffering and in pain and, living in confusion and ignorance maybe in different ways?
Yeah, I can. Some of it for me.
Right. So from this, incredible oceans of compassion that you have for all of creation, would you be willing just to embrace the self, the wounded self, the suffering self, and just offer some of your great healing and tenderness and compassion for a moment?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So just take a moment to embrace the aspects of the self and just flood those aspects of your own being with compassion and kindness and love and tenderness. And let's tap through the points. I am the Great Mother of Pure Being.
I am the Great Mother of Pure Being.
Oceans of compassion, love, and kindness.
Oceans of compassion,
love, and kindness.
And I embrace the self.
And I embrace the self.
The 10,000 voices of the self.
The 10,000 voices of the self.
The splinters of consciousness called the ego mind.
The splinters
of consciousness called the ego mind.
I embrace them all.
I embrace them all.
I bring my full attention.
I bring my full attention.
My open heart.
My open heart.
My great love to all aspects of the self.
My great love to all aspects
of the self.
I am love.
I am love.
I am tenderness.
I am tenderness.
And in my wholeness.
And in my wholeness.
I heal all delusions of fear.
I heal all
delusions of fear.
All illusions of separation.
All illusions of separation.
All suffering.
All suffering.
All pain.
All pain.
All pain.
All toxic emotions.
All toxic
emotions.
Are held in my enlightening embrace.
Are held in my
enlightening embrace.
Offering all aspects of love and consciousness.
Offering all
aspects of love and consciousness.
Till all is whole.
Till all is
whole.
All is healed.
All is healed.
No need to suffer.
No need to suffer.
No need for pain.
No need for pain.
I am the ocean of love.
I am the ocean of
love.
I am the Great Mother.
I am
the Great Mother.
I am the Tao.
I am the Tao.
I am the cosmic integration of stillness and compassion.
I am the cosmic
integration of stillness and compassion.
I am the Great Being.
I am the Great Being.
And I am love.
And I am love.
Take a breath.
Wow.
Yeah. I feel like I'm high.
Yeah, I feel so gooey. It's like when we first did it, I was feeling like just kind of emotional, even like a little bit sad just from some of the parts of the self that, were hurt. And, after, I kind of held the self, and then we did this last tapping round. Oh, my God. Yeah, I feel so relaxed and just like jello.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you gave permission to let go of the toxic emotions,
mm-hmm.
that was big for me. Like I could just feel the toxic emotions leaving. I don't know where they were leaving, but they were leaving.
Right. Well, that's the beauty. They're neutralizing the energy of the cosmos.
Oh, okay.
They're just recycled.
Not back to me.
Well, see, that's the beauty of working with these energies consciously, is that you can determine, it's going back to that story of the Dalai Lama of, feeling that intense emotion of grief in that moment, grieving for his brothers and sisters who were executed, and yet then a few minutes later he could come back to this incredible place of compassion and say, let's pray for the Chinese.
Yeah.
So,
that's awesome.
Right. So there's a wonderful story. There's a Western researcher. His name's Paul Ekman, and he's the researcher, the emotion that did all this work called micro expressions. That he basically can read faces, and he's the one who established that universally around the world that we all have the same emotions. So you can take photographs of Americans into the jungles of Papua New Guinea, and they can tell you what emotion the person is feeling. And
Wow.
so if you ever saw the TV show on Fox called Lie to Me, that show was based on Paul Ekman and his work. But Paul Ekman says of the Dalai Lama that the musculature of his face is the most unique he's ever seen or studied in the world, because he's so present to all of his emotions. And so it's actually changed his musculature in how his face is supported on the bones.
That is very fascinating.
Yeah. So that's what I strive for. I'm not there yet. I'm still suppressing some shame and some grief and some anger.
Right.
But it's something to work towards.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys for playing. We've got one more voice that I'd like to wrap up the demonstration to for everybody at home, and then I'm going to tell people, give them an invitation if they want to take this work deeper, and then after that invitation, I'm going to open it up for Q&A, so if anybody has anything they want to share, you can. So the final voice I want to speak to, and Mr. Brad, are you still with us? You're pretty quiet back there.
Yeah, I am. I've been yawning so much that I can barely speak as the energy shifts.
Good. Right, and for those of you that are not quite familiar with tapping, yawning is actually a good thing. It's a signal that the psyche is shifting and the energy level in the body is shifting. So yawning is actually a welcome thing in tapping circles. Okay, great. So the last voice, please allow me to speak to fully enlightened, fully embodied, present human being. And shifting in your chairs and tapping through the points. I am the fully enlightened.
I am the fully enlightened,
Fully embodied.
fully embodied,
Present human being.
present human being.
I transcend and include.
I transcend and include
All aspects of consciousness.
all aspects of consciousness.
The self.
The self,
The non-self.
the non-self,
Fully expressing as the true self.
fully
expressing as the true self.
Arising now in this moment.
arising now in this moment
As pure perfection.
as pure perfection.
I am bones, muscles, and connective tissues.
I am bones, muscles,
and tissues.
I am heart and breath.
I am heart and breath.
I am all aspects of mind.
I am all aspects
of mind.
Unconscious mind.
Unconscious mind.
Conscious mind.
Conscious mind.
Superconscious mind.
Superconscious mind.
I am choice and discernment.
I am choice and discernment.
I am action and behavior.
I am action and behavior.
And I am the subtle energies of the body.
And I am the subtle energies
subtle
of the
energies
body.
of the body.
Chi, prana, the auric field.
Chi,
Prana, the auric field.
All now fully integrating into this precious moment.
all now
Fully integrating into this precious moment.
precious moment.
I am fully enlightened.
I am fully
Fully
enlightened,
enlightened.
Fully embodied.
fully embodied,
Fully embodied.
Fully engaged.
fully engaged,
Fully engaged.
Fully functioning.
fully
Fully
functioning,
functioning.
Fully integrated.
fully
Fully
integrated.
integrated.
I am fully present.
I am fully present.
I am a present human being.
I am a present
A
human
present
being
human being.
Arising in this moment.
arising in this
Being
moment,
in this moment.
Celebrating the great mystery of life.
celebrating the great
Celebrating the great mystery of life.
In awe of the mystery of life.
in awe
In
of the
Of the
mystery,
mystery of life.
And yet grounded in the universe.
and yet grounded in the
In
universe,
the universe.
Grounded in the fields of pure potentiality.
grounded in the
Grounded in the
fields,
field of pure potentiality.
Arising in three-dimensional time and space.
arising
Arising
in
in three-dimensional time and space.
As this body.
as this
And
body,
this body.
This breath.
this breath,
This mind.
this mind,
This mind.
This spirit.
this spirit.
How thrilling to be alive.
How thrilling to be alive.
And take a breath.
Oh. Wow, again. That one I just kept like this bubbling happiness kind of coming out, and I was feeling some movement in my throat and my second chakra. So, way cool.
Well, we better warn Ohio then.
That's right. Watch out, Ohio. Kathy Hamilton's out.
That's it. Kathy Hamilton is in the house. All right. What's that, Mr. Brad?
Far more embodied at the physical level instead of spinning in my head like I usually am.
Right. Well, now you're the resident creative idealist. Is that correct?
That would be me.
Yeah. So great. So embodiment is a good thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, listen, you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate all your help. You're welcome to hang around. I'm going to make an invitation for people and then open it up for Q and answer. So, if you want to, if people have questions and you want to chime in, then I welcome that. So,
Alan, I'd like to thank you because this is like this bottled up stuff you should sell for $1 million because I'd be in line up to buy it because if I could feel this good after how long I've been tapping with you just tonight, yeah, it's amazing what you've done. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Deborah. This has been awesome. I'm just like having a little out of body experience to get grounded at the same time. It's like, whoa.
Well, good. Well, great.
For me, having an in-body experience as a creative idealist is a good thing. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, and that's really the spiritual journey. We didn't even get into the 5 levels of enlightenment here, but it's really how do we plumb the depths of the universe and the spirit and the vast stillness of the cosmos, and yet we have to bring it home back to our bodies. And even for the culture that we live in, that's so confused about the body, there is this entire movement, the whole body, mind, spirit integration movement. I think tapping is so powerful with that, is how do we, bring it all back and make peace with our own bones and our own skin.
Oh, yeah, that is absolutely beautiful.
Okay, great. All right, well, I'm going to let people know if they want to continue to do some of this work with me, how they can do that. And so I'll talk to you guys in a little bit, okay?
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Okay, thank you. I hope that doing the demonstration, I hope that you were actually speaking aloud whatever corner of the world you were in, and that you were tapping along with us so that you could really get the experience. It's a simple technique, and yet profound what it can do, and it will catapult your spiritual growth. And so we'll go for there. So for those of you that are interested, I've designed a home study course. I do these in live events. I do them in evenings. I do them in weekend workshops. But, you know, I have friends and clients in Australia and South Africa and all over Europe and South America and Canada that can't always come to Texas and Houston to be with me. So I created a home study course, and I call it, this work, I call it Tapping Liberation. Because not only are we using EFT tapping, but we're actually tapping into those voices of consciousness in the cosmos that allows us to experience and actually use the wisdom, the highest wisdom and compassion in the cosmos in each breath and each action and each gesture. So the home study course is 6 modules. That is, the first one is Embodying Enlightenment, which is very much what we just demonstrated here, but going into more of the voices of the self, and then more of the voices, the enlightened voices, and then integrating them. But I'm actually teaching you how to do this for yourself. With a little bit of skill and practice, you can actually shift into a voice in just a moment. And if you want to tap, you can. But when you realize that maybe you're stuck in a grumpy mood or something, and you realize, wow, there's 10,000 other voices that I could be channeling right now, which one would give me the greatest impact and effect in my day and the goals that I have and the intention that I have for my day and my life? And then Module 2, as I said, we didn't go into the regression process, but I will also take you through and teach you a way to find, you know, the earliest memory that your superconscious mind will take us to find out some kernel of fear that's really stuck in your consciousness and in your body, and then use the EFT, the kind of classic EFT tapping process to neutralize it from an intensity level of, say, a 10 and go all the way down to a 0 so that you're really at ease and at peace with that earliest painful memory. Module 3, then we focus on the second chakra, which is the lust, grasping, and cravings, and we transform that into deep desire. Next module is anger, and we work with the earliest memories and experiences of anger, and then work with the voices of deep, authentic, embodied power. We go into the voices of shame, humiliation, disgust, revulsion, and transform them into exquisite vulnerability. And then the last module is grief into deep joy. And so those are the modules, and I do release them, you know, 1 a week because they are powerful. They are deeply transforming, and I want you to have some time to do them and then enjoy the integration and the experience of it. In addition to each of those modules, you get, you know, the video replays. They're all downloadable. You get audio files so that if you prefer just to listen to them while you're not a good idea to do this while you're driving. I hate to tell you that, but if you want to put them on your iPod or your iPad or something like that, you can. You know, you pretty much own the entire course. You get copies of all the notes, the handouts, the PDF files, and the videos, everything. And then there'll also be a Facebook group with the course. And then for those of you that are really interested in investing in your spiritual transformation at this point, there are some bonuses. So you get a ticket to one of my 2013 Tapping Liberation live event. There'll be one in the summer and there'll be one in the fall that will be here in Houston, Texas. That's a $497 value. You also, now these classes, the modules are pre-recorded. So I want you to have them. You can study them, but in addition to that, you will get 5 live group Q&A laser coaching calls with me. Then, you know, I was just talking about the bones and the muscles and how we had to embody the wisdom of the cosmos in our own bodies. So one of my favorite practices is a Tai Chi practice. It's a very, very simple Tai Chi practice. It's called the 5 elements. So it takes about 10 minutes to do every morning, and it's working with earth, water, fire, air, and the ether element, and help you integrate physically and energetically. And then one of the most powerful practices that I use in my life and have used for at least 10 years now is it's a chakra meditation. It's an open-eye meditation. It's a kaleidoscope of each of the 7 chakras with beautiful, beautiful colors. But then I use a specific vowel sound to tone with each of those chakras. And I'm here to tell you this practice alone will catapult your spiritual transformation into high gear, just this chakra meditation by itself. And then for those of you that are interested, that 6 bonus is a 60-day free trial of my Through Your Body Mastery membership. And that's where I interview experts that I work with, that I trust, from some of the greats like Deepak Chopra and Marianne Williamson and Jean Houston, Carolyn Mace, Anna Day Judith, to people like Margaret Lynch, who may be a little lesser known, but also has an amazing message. I've interviewed Reese Thomas, John Wyrick, the Karmic Doctor. So, it's a monthly CD that you get each month, as well as a monthly meditation. I said I've led my meditation group here for over 16 years, so I take the best meditation of the month and put it on CD and send that to you. So that's a bonus for you if you want it. If you're interested in the course, you can go to www.throughyyourbody.com/tapping, and you'll see, there's the sales page there, and you can make that investment for yourself. So the total value of the home study course and the special bonuses is worth $917. But you don't need to pay that tonight, and I want to explain why. As I said at the beginning of the call, that I am dedicated to you embodying your spiritual enlightenment so that together we can midwife a magnificent new world, a world where all of us can celebrate our health, our happiness, and our prosperity. And here's the one thing that I've learned in my 30-plus years of healing and transformation. For all the problems that face us in the world, pollution, global warming, war, hatred, prejudice, bigotry, all of those problems, as important as each of them are individually, the common denominator is actually the lack of human development. I believe that if we can really begin to transform our lives, to embody these spiritual truths, to transform these toxic and poisonous emotions in our lives, that we can, each of us, become the tipping point of consciousness that will allow us to really midwife that new world. And because of my commitment to you, this is an entry-level introduction course to my work. 30-plus years that I've been out in the world seeking, transforming, and changing myself. And I promise you I'm not there yet, but these are the things that work for me and give me the extraordinary sense of where I am in my life. To be able to go from a junkie, my Twitter bio says drag queen, junkie, bartender, writes best-selling health and wellness book. So if I can become an old junkie, bartending, female impersonator, and transform all of that and become and move and live into my own personal authority, spiritual authority, then I'm pretty sure you can too. And I'm just showing you the techniques that have worked for me to do that. So the price for the next 7 days, it's a special offer just for the next 7 days. It's 2 payments of $97. That's $97 today and a second payment of $97 in 28 days. So that's the investment for you. It's $194. You put those 2 together. And like I said, I have been rigorous and dedicated in my spiritual transformation. Even in I remember being a bartender, and we would take hits of acid, and we would talk about the nature of the universe. And, there was always this spiritual curiosity that I had of looking for a spiritual solution to my own problems and life's problems. And, I have been to so many spiritual retreats and trainings and conferences and workshops and, so much of it. And I really have finally reached a point in my life where I can say I'm healthy, I'm happy. I haven't had a cocktail in 22 years, I think it is, long time. So I'm bringing you just the very best technology that I found that works for me. And for people that are meditators and have had spiritual practices for decades, this work is really making an impact for people. So I'm going to open up for Q&A. I did want to tell you a couple of stories. A couple of people who I've done this work with, Rhys Thomas from the Rhys Thomas Institute, Margaret Lynch, Laura Silva, who's the CEO of the Silva Method. She's Jose Silva's daughter and has been doing spiritual transformation all of her life. She said that this work, that in my 2.5-day live event, was some of the most powerful that she's ever done, and that even for all the work that she did, she was able to get in and really clear out some old clutter and old garbage and put some things together that she had never put together. Nana Kasha, who is a spiritual teacher, she's been teaching for 27 years, and she said that it's been a long time since she's found anyone that could facilitate her deep enough to have a major breakthrough, and she did have a breakthrough with this work. So there's more testimonials, there's more things on the webpage. So if you go back to throughyourbody.com/tapping, TAPPING /, you can learn more about the course, the bonuses, and the investment for yourself. So that's really all I have for you this evening. I would like to open it up for questions. If you have a question, raise your hand. And, if you've got a headset and microphone, I'm happy to talk to you live. Or we can, Daryl Nakagawa, hello. What, stranger from the past, great to have you with us. And I see Nancy Winters, who was my massage teacher a bajillion years ago, way back in 1987 when I very first started my practice. She was my teacher and mentor, so hello, Nancy. So if anybody, you've got a question, raise your hand, you can. And I'm going to unmute the other people, Deborah and Kathy, and Brad, you can unmute yourself. Do you guys have any comments or questions for me?
I don't have any questions, Alan. I'm just so blown away by even just the price of what you're offering and just how powerful this was tonight. Like Deborah had said, I'm just in awe. This is just awesome. So excited.
Yeah.
I was definitely shocked at the price also. I was a lot lower than I was expecting.
Well, this is the introductory level. I want people, people think, oh, this voice dialogue thing, this shifting in my chair, yeah. But it has been one of the most powerful practices for me. And I've done a lot of it. Nancy will remember probably Dorsey Cartwright and Ann Lassiter. I did a year of voice dialogue training and therapy with Dorsey, and then I mentored under Ann Lassiter, who was another body worker, really, really advanced body worker, and she worked with the voices, where people were holding pain or scar tissue in the body. She taught me how to communicate and work with the voices that were holding on to the pain.
Oh,
yeah.
Wicked cool. That's awesome.
Right.
I need that. Okay.
And then when I met Genpo Roshi, the Zen master, who had said, oh, but wait, there's all these 10,000 enlightened voices that are already always there. We just need to speak to them. Man, I was just thrilled. And I really studied with him and Diane Hamilton for really about 4 years to become a facilitator of this work. And then I sort of really, with the tapping, moved in my own direction in the emotional healing and recovery that I do. That's really the gift of that download I got at Margaret's event. So it's very, very exciting.
Yeah.
So I actually do have a question based on your previous comment there, Alan.
Okay.
You said that the 10,000 voices are there that are the enlightened ones, and the immediate thought that popped into my head is, well, of course we can't hear them. They're too polite to interrupt because they're enlightened.
Well, I'm here to tell you some of them are not so polite. When you start getting into, we talked to the great mother of compassion. Well, there's the great father of compassion, and he doesn't take any bullshit from anybody. In Zen Buddhism, they talk about the sword of compassion. It's that capacity to go into the root of ignorance and suffering and to cut it out. So,
Fascinating.
Yeah, you start working with these exalted voices, and you realize these incredible impulses. And here's something I want to say. This is what I've noticed in my own self and facilitating this work for years with people. Is we tend to disown certain voices or certain emotions. Okay, so it's it's okay to be irritated, but it's not okay to be raging.
Yeah.
And what I know is that when we suppress these energies and these emotions in our body, they're stored and they're trapped in our body. I like to say they've been locked away in the dungeon. And what I also notice, if a voice has been locked in the dungeon, it's not that it's not there, it's just working covertly in the background to sabotage us. So we have to bring that voice of rage and just allow a conscious, clear, safe space for it to communicate what it wants. What does it need? What is it raging about? And what's its real job at the core? What's its real job for the self at the core? And these voices that have been disowned and locked away and stuffed under, it becomes, they mature, they evolve. And what we realize is all of a sudden, the rageaholic, there's an enlightened facet to that. And all of a sudden we realize that the rageaholic then is transformed, it's enlightened, it's embodied, and it becomes that impulse in all of us that when we see injustice, we stand up, we step up, and we put a stop to it.
Instead of just letting it go, like you always say, "Oh, just let it go," karma and all of that.
Oh, right.
This is just it takes this work we've been doing for the last year with Margaret Lynch, because Kathy, Brad, and I are all in her program, just to a whole nother level. And this isn't even scary anymore to me like it used to be. You make it so that it is in this safe place, and this just makes our life so much better, more enriched, actually, in a safe environment.
Right.
Very true.
Right.
Yeah, I was even thinking it's so complementary to with Margaret's work and Reese. I mean, and this just kind of it's like it just kind of completes the circle for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It feels, I'm just mind-boggled right now because I'm just feeling like, okay, this is such a cool place. I mean, to have this opportunity.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Kind of awe. I'm feeling very in awe right now.
Well, good. Well, I'm going to twist your mind one more time. I'm going to talk about the sexual pervert.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
I love the Canadian who goes, oh. So, the sexual pervert in our culture rightfully is a dangerous, a predator. And, I'm going back to those two qualities of fear that we all experience, to be abandoned or to be annihilated. And some people develop pathological ways of doing that. But also we live in a culture that is still so ashamed of the body and so ashamed of sexuality. And people ask me about my book, Body Brilliance. There's all these exquisite nude photographs of people doing martial arts and yoga and just the beauty of the body. Well, our culture is so suppressing and stifling. It's wanting to lock sexuality and the body in the dungeon. And so people develop this sexual pervert and predator that is very dangerous and painful and inflicts so much suffering in the world. But when we begin to work with that aspect in our own consciousness, where am I a predator? Where am I a pervert? Where am I suppressing and distorting my own sexual energy? When I work consciously with that, all of a sudden, the Kundalini energy in my own body begins to transform.
Nice.
So when I hold that energy in a conscious place, I don't have to act out on it. I don't have to act in a place that is dangerous or inflicting pain or suffering on somebody else. All of a sudden it becomes a tool for inner inquiry and awareness, and all that suppressed sexual energy now becomes available to me for spiritual transformation.
What a novel idea. This should be taught in grade 12.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, just talk about, just embracing everything, as is, and just, taking that fight out of it. And that's, I'm all about just stop fighting against it and just.
Right. But I also want to say that's where that sort of compassion is so important, so that the people who are choosing to act out in the world and inflict suffering because they are a predator, or they are a rageaholic, or they are a murderer or a rapist or whatever, that's where we have to get in touch with our own masculine compassion and say, enough, no more.
Yeah.
What is this 1 billion rising? This whole movement of saying that, 1 billion women in the world will be attacked or experience violence in some way. And so, it's that yang compassion of no more, so that we have to stop the predators so that they're not inflicting pain, but we also have to use that energy within ourselves in a conscious way.
So what I like is for 2 simple payments of $97, I'm just looking at this on my thing, I can learn this in a proven way that you've done, because your story, you've done it, you've walked it, and you've developed this, and it's working on you. And we can take it to the families, and it can just spread. Like for 2 easy payments of $97, it keeps blowing at me at the screen like, what am I waiting for?
Well, we're probably not going to get to the sexual predator in the basic course, but, hey. But you will get grounded enough with releasing these emotions. And like I said, we do 1 session on shame. And I will show you Brene Brown's 12 categories of shame. And you can explore each of those in your own life and find out are you harboring some shame in your own life about some memory or experience, and completely neutralize it and healing it and be free of it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, just keep changing the world. Wow.
And
well, you guys have been so incredible. There's still people on the webinar. You guys are still hanging around on phone. So I want to thank everybody who's been listening to us tonight. Thank you. I would especially want to say a thanks to Brad and to Deborah and to Kathy for being my echo and being such great sports and just being cheerleaders for my work. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'd like to add, Alan, is the fact that you're getting all of this and have access to it basically forever means that you can go through it multiple times. And I know that with the work that I've done with Margaret, going back through it, I'm getting a whole nother set of layers that are coming off, having gone through it the second time. So there's a whole lot of value in having the recordings to be able to go through them multiple times. Right.
Well, it's, sometimes you're just peeling the layers, Brad, and, these techniques, and I know Nancy, my friend listening in here, will agree that, we learn these techniques, and I just watch the ones that I'm called to use over and over and over. I might put, like the kaleidoscopic chakra chanting technique. I don't use it all the time, but, I'll go through phases where I'll tone every day for 3 or 4 months. So it's just I pick them up as I need it, and I trust my spirit to guide me. Okay, it's time to use this tool in this way for a while, and just trust that.
Yeah, that's important.
Very cool.
Well, I want to say goodbye to everybody, so thank you so much. I appreciate your time, your attention. I'd love to do the course with you. The first module will be released on Monday, which is the 18th, And the first live Q&A call is on the 25th, Monday the 25th. So you've got a week then to really implement it and listen to it and use it. And, you know, the calls, I'll answer questions. I'll guide you through the regression process for the emotion of that week. We'll do tapping just like we did tonight. We'll always, always work with the enlightened voices, ending with, you know, that fully enlightened, fully embodied, present human being, you know, integrating all the pieces. So I'd love to have you come play with us. And thanks for everything. And blessings to you in your life and where you go. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.